right, we are going to go ahead and get started. Thank you so much for being here. This is our very first math night, so thanks for coming and supporting us and supporting your students by being here. Today our agenda is going to be pretty simple. We are going to start off just by introducing the team here and kind of telling a little bit about ourselves. And then we're going to cover 3 math topics. So we're going to cover multiplicative comparisons, factors and multiples, and then how to apply those things to word problems, equations, and patterns. And that lines up with our next few math lessons. So we'll start off just introducing ourselves. I'll let everyone introduce themselves.
Okay, well, my name is Mrs. Brown, Mindy Brown, and I have a couple of students here, which I'm super excited about that. In terms of my background with math, I do have a master's degree in math education, so I'm excited to bring all my learning into this, and yeah, I just want to say welcome for everybody being here.
My name is Miss Rena Conroy, and I am also just very excited to talk to everyone today about kind of what we've been working on. I'm one of our math tutors here at Feaster, so we're going to talk about our tutoring program a little bit as well. And that is something that's available to all students, so I'll give you some more information about that at the end.
Hi, my name is Miss Varga, and I am a second year teacher, and I have my bachelor's degree in geology, which you see math through in a different perspective. So I hope that we can bring more of more context into math and maybe looking at math in different ways.
I'm Miss Sureño. I am the Spanish teacher for the DI program. I don't teach math, but I'll be here to support for the Spanish.
So each time that we start a new unit in math, we are working on like one big topic. And the unit that we are starting right now is about multiplication, division, and algebraic thinking. And algebraic thinking just means that we are hoping to get students starting to think in an algebraic way, in a way that they can find unknowns in a problem. So to give you a little bit of a breakdown of the unit, this unit has 5 lessons, and each lesson is 3 to 5 days. So what each lesson starts with is a parent letter, which you have examples of that in your packets. And then each lesson ends with a quiz. So if your students are talking about taking a quiz, that is the end of one lesson. And then at the end of the unit, we'll take a unit test that covers the whole unit. So we're going to watch a short video that kind of shows how all of the lessons in the unit are related and how they build on one another. Hopefully my link works. Yes, that would be great.
In this unit, students will explore multi-digit operations and measurement. And as they do this, they'll deepen their understanding.
Hold on, that's the wrong one. Okay, for real this time.
In this unit, students will tackle the operations of multiplication and division. And as they do this, they'll build their understanding of algebraic thinking and reasoning and apply it to these operations. One of the first things that students will encounter in this unit is this whole idea of comparative multiplication. So what might this look like in a 4th grade classroom? Well, take this square, for example. Well, if we assign a value of 1 square, 3, we can begin to see that 4 squares is 12. And because of that, we 4 times as much as 3. A big piece as we're beginning to build this whole idea of comparative multiplication through the lens of algebraic thinking, we want students to understand the relationship between multiplication and division. And in doing so, as students build this relational understanding, they begin to understand their facts and how numbers can be put together, and their understanding of facts. It's not memorized. And because students have built this understanding of their facts through relational understanding, it makes understanding factors and multiples much easier. Let's take this for example. If we're trying to figure out what multiples are multiples of 3, well, we can see that if we were skip counting by 3, we would end up at 3, 6, 9, and 12. How many ways can we skip count to 12? Here's a great way to get students to see the different ways that we can explore factors of numbers. So how many different arrays can we build for the number 12? Well, we can build 2 rows of 6. We can build 6 rows of 2. We can build 3 rows of 4, 4 rows of 3, 1 row of 12, and 12 rows of 1. What's great is as students are building this understanding, they really see that each row is what they're skip counting by. Such a great way for students to conceptually build this understanding for factors of numbers. Now this is 12, but students should have lots of opportunities to explore it with all numbers. And when they build this understanding conceptually, we naturally can enter into this conversation of composite and prime numbers. Let's take this for example. 5. Well, we can only build an array of 5 2 different ways. 1 row of 5, or 5 rows of 1. Lots of understanding taking place in this unit, and we have to make sure that students are able to recognize these patterns, and it's built relationally, not through memorization.
So that was kind of an overview of the whole unit. Now we're going to break it down into some smaller parts. In your packet, you have all of the information that we're going to show on the screen. So there's some room to write notes and questions. Feel free to stop us, ask questions. We can do examples if you need to. Definitely want this to be a chance for you to explore the math as well, so that when your students are bringing it home, you have the understanding that they have in class. All right, Ms. Brown, take it away.
So before I begin talking about lesson 7, I just want to see if there's any questions or wonderings before we get started. Because at this point, we're going to be breaking it down into the different lessons. So the first thing that we're going to be sharing, it comes from lesson 7. And this is all about multiplicative comparison. And that is a bit of a mouthful. And it does feel, can be a little bit daunting at first. But really, what we're showing is how numbers can be compared to each other. So some insights are that during this lesson, during these lessons, students will begin to establish the relationship between the factors in a multiplication problem, so the two numbers that are being multiplied, and the product, which is the result. And you can see here, we are comparing 15 and 3 times 5. Okay, so the way that we would say this as a 4th grader would be 35 is 7 times as many as 5. And the way that we show this, the way that we show 35 is 7, excuse me, let me go back. The way that we show 15 is 3 times as many as 5 would be using this bar model. So I would ask the students, for example here, we're representing 5 in the first group. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And they draw dots or stars or whatever they like. To show 3 times as many, they would show 1 group of 5, 2 groups of 5, and 3 groups of 5. And then they can either count by ones, or they can skip count by fives. 5, 10, 15. And that's just how we start to introduce the process. Any questions about any of that? Okay, so what's being sent home at the beginning of every lesson is a parent letter. So hopefully this looks familiar. Hopefully you're getting these at the beginning of each unit. And this is just a way for parents to get a preview of what it is that we're going to be learning about in class every day. So we're going to take a little deeper look here. So some of us this week, some students last week, began learning about multiplication in word problems. So here's an example of what your student might be trying. The word problem reads, a box holds 7 markers. Jafar needs 3 times as many markers. How many markers does Jafar need? In class, the first thing that I would ask students is, what is this problem about? And then we'll read it a second time, and we'll ask ourselves, what is our job? What are we trying to figure out in this problem? And hopefully they would say, we need to know how many markers Jafar needs. Next, we'll read it one more time, and students will begin working on it. So we know that we know that a box has 7 markers. So using the bar model, the student would represent that in the first box. We know that Jafar needs 3 times as many, so we can see that represented in the 3 boxes. And students would skip count by 7s, 7, 14, 21 to find their answer. Jafar has or needs 21 markers. Any questions about the use of the bar model? So the second component of the parent letter is an activity that we encourage you guys to try together. So here's an example from lesson 7, and this gives us a word problem. Actually, no, it does not give you a word problem. It asks that you try it with a dice. So that's something fun, something maybe you guys could do together. So let's say your student rolls a 3. You'll use some kind of counter. It could be a paper clip, it could be pennies, it could be buttons, it could be chocolate kisses, pretzels, whatever you like. I'm going to use these counters here. Let's say I roll a 3 on my dice. So I'm going to take out 3. 1, 2, 3. Now I'm going to roll the dice again. Let's say I get a 4. So now I want to show 4 times as many as 3. So I'm going to pull out another set of 3. I have 2 times as many. Another set of 3. And I have 3 times as many. And finally, my 4th. Now I have 4 times as many as 3. And I can count them, and I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So 4 times as many as 3 equals 12. That's just a fun way to practice your multiplication skills. Any questions about any of that? No questions? Okay. That is lesson 7. That's lesson 7 in a nutshell.
Thank you, John. We are going to go on to multiples and factors. Múltiplos y factores. Estas palabras son cognados, son muy similares y significan lo mismo. Our 2 words, they're very similar and they mean the same thing. So hopefully when our students, our English learning students can also make that connection, but I know at home, I don't teach math and Spanish. I teach it in English, but it is nice to see the terminology merge. Yo no enseño matemáticas en español, lo enseño en inglés, pero me gusta mucho cuando vemos ese tipo de terminología porque es más fácil que todos lo entendamos. Okay. Esta es la carta que van a recibir. This is a letter you'll be receiving home, and this is explaining a little bit about our next lesson. We hope that you can do these type of activities at home. And they're very fun and they're very easy, just like the one that Ms. Brown did. Y queremos ojalá que puedan hacer esas tipo de actividades en casa porque son muy fáciles, son divertidas y justo como la que acaba de hacer Ms. Brown. En este tipo de actividad vamos a conocer nuestros números muy bien. Tenemos que decidir si tenemos que averiguar los factores y también tenemos que averiguar los múltiplos. También tenemos que averiguar si son números primos o compuestos. So in this type of activity, you're going to get to know your number. Okay, we're going to talk about their factors. We're going to talk about their multiples. We're going to talk about, is it a composite number? Is it a prime number? Okay. En este caso hay 18 estrellas. In this case, there's 18 stars. Y nuestra amiga Indira, our friend Indira, quiere arreglar esas estrellas en diferentes órdenes. Our friend wants to organize these stars in different ways. Okay? So that's when our organization skills are going to come in. So we have 18 in total, but we want to talk about how these 18 stars can be arranged in 3 rows. They can be arranged in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rows. It can also be arranged this way and this. Okay? So this is the type of work that you're going to be doing. Ese es el tipo de trabajo que van a hacer ustedes. Y como ven, es muy fácil. Pueden usar marcadores, pueden usar cualquier papel, pueden usar keys en la calle, pueden usar cualquier otra tecnología que tengan. Okay, entonces pueden ser creativos para hacer las actividades un poquito más divertidas. So you can use chalk and you can do it outside. You can also do other technologies that you have. You can also use anything that you have at home to hopefully engage your students a little bit more. Okay. And in this activity, you also get to use the dice. So for these type of activities, we're going to be very mindful and we're going to send you maybe to build your own dice. You won't necessarily have to go out and buy them. Cuando tengamos este tipo de actividades y necesiten materiales, vamos a tratar de mandar esos materiales a ustedes para que no necesariamente tengan que salir a comprar cosas adicionales. ¿Okay? Y ahora, ¿qué son nuestros factores? Son los múltiplos. What are our factors and our multiples? Okay? Los factores son dos números que cuando los multiplican, okay, te dan una respuesta. Our factor pairs is when you multiply two numbers, they'll give you a product. Okay? Nuestros múltiplos, our multiples are the product of a given number and any other whole number. Entonces, cuando hablamos de múltiplos, estamos hablando pues nuestras tablas. Okay, del 1 hasta, típicamente en la escuela hablamos del 1 al 12, es las que practicamos más, las que usamos más. Los números primos, our prime numbers, son cualquier número entero que tenga al menos un par y no más uno, sí mismo y un par que es 1. Y nuestros números compuestos, our composite numbers, son números que tengan más de un factor. Lo voy a leer en inglés. Our prime number is a whole number that has only one factor pair, itself and 1. Our composite numbers, they have more than one factor pair. Okay? That was a little fast. Y sé que lo dije un poquito rápido, creo que estoy un poco emocionada. Pero ahora podemos ver cuáles son los 6 factores de 20. What are the 6 factors of 20? Okay? Entonces, son dos números que cuando multiplicas te dan 20. So what two numbers when we multiply, we get 20? Yeah? So 5 and 4 are factors, okay? So, a little thinking time. 1, 2, 4, 5, 10, and 20 are factors of 20. 1, 2, 4, 5, 10 y 20 son factores de 20. Porque cuando multiplicas ciertos pares, te dan el número 20. Uy, no les di tiempo para pensar. I didn't give you thinking time. ¿Cuáles son unos múltiplos de 4? What are some multiples of 4? Yes. 2 times 2. 2 por 2. Eso. Okay, thank you, my friend, for your participation. But our multiples are 4 would begin here. 4, 8, 12, 16. Okay, so if you see back there, we have our multiplication numbers. Okay, those are our multiples. Okay, we have to get used to and get close to our numbers, get to know them. Okay, so this kind of activity can be a little bit faster. Or let's see that. Sorry about that. And finally, which number is prime number? Is 3 the prime number or 6 the prime number? ¿Cuál es el número primo? ¿Es 3 o 6? ¿Qué pensamos, público? What are we thinking? Ay, creo que me equivoqué, es el otro. 3 es el número primo porque nomás tiene 3 y 1. 3 y 1 es el único par. Nomás puedes multiplicar 3 y 1 y llegar a 3. 6, puedes multiplicar 6 y 1 y 3 y 2. Y por lo último, nomás quería enseñarles, quiero tener el término correcto, disculpen. Es una recta numérica. It's our number line. This is something that can help us with our multiples. It's a visual. It's very helpful for students to work with number lines, but also area models, which is these type of visuals that we probably see a lot, but maybe we didn't know what they were called. Entonces, algunas estrategias que queremos usar en clases son la recta numérica y los modelos de área. ¿Okay? Cuando estén experimentando los niños con estos números, se les va a hacer más fácil hacer conexiones y desarrollar esas habilidades un poquito más. When students have time to work with these numbers, they can develop and notice patterns, and it's going to help them not just memorize them, but have a good understanding of the numbers when they work with them. Thank you.
All right, so once we have a solid understanding of multiplicative comparisons and a solid understanding of factors and multiples, the next step is to put all of that together to solve problems. So our last step is going to be solving multiple step word problems, writing equations, and noticing patterns. And a lot of what we do, like we've mentioned, is instead of just memorizing math facts, which is how I remember learning multiplication, right? Like just doing it as fast as you can, as many as you can in 1 minute. But now we're much more focused on recognizing the patterns and how to solve problems and what multiplication actually means. So that's what we're going to talk about now. So when we read a word problem, we want to show it with some sort of diagram or model. Then we also want to be able to express that mathematically with an equation. So one type of model that we use is a bar model that we saw for our multiplicative comparisons. And then we also have equations that match up to the bar models. We are always looking for patterns in math, and there's lots of different ways that patterns can be represented. One is with a number line. So we don't have a word problem to go with this situation, but we could imagine that we're doing something 4 more times on Tuesday than we did on Monday, and then 4 more times each day. So we can use a number line to show that. And then we can also create patterns with shapes, repeating patterns. And any time that we have a pattern, we want to be looking for the rule that it is following. So when we're talking about patterns and doing homework with patterns, we want to really be looking for the rule that the pattern is following. So our parent letter for our lesson about patterns explains that we are looking at patterns with numbers and shapes. Give me a second to find the page because I'm finding my page too. Okay, perfect. And when we look at number and shape patterns, sometimes we'll start off with the pattern and some blanks after. And then your job as the student is to find what comes next in the pattern. In this pattern, 3, 6, 9, 12, the rule is add 3 each time. So there's also other ways to describe the pattern. So we could also say, well, first we have an odd, then an even. An odd, then an even. That rule also applies to the pattern. We could also say, like, if we only had 3 and 6, the rule might be to double the number. So it's really important that we look at the whole pattern to figure out the rule that the entire pattern is following. We're also going to look at shape patterns. In this shape pattern, we have repeating pentagon, square, triangle, pentagon, square, triangle. So we are asking students to identify that after the triangle will be another pentagon, another square, another triangle. But if we didn't have the vocabulary, we could also look at the numbers of sides. We could say we have a shape with 5 sides, 4 sides, 3 sides, 5 sides, 4 sides, 3 sides. So it's important to remember that there are a lot of different ways to explain the same pattern. On the next page, you have your at-home activity. So we have 2 patterns there, and then just so that you have some context, this lesson we won't be starting for a few weeks. So just kind of keep that in mind. But it gives you a pattern. You can look at the pattern with your student and find the rule. And then you can talk about other ways to describe the rule. Maybe there are other rules that also apply to the pattern. Then we have another pattern. And you could even take this further and use objects around the house to create a pattern and talk about what the rule would be. Or you create a pattern and your child has to find the rule, or they create a pattern and challenge you to find the rule. But our goal really is that we're talking about these things and practicing these skills as much as possible. And once we have solidified, some things to remember about patterns. They follow rules, so we want to keep using that word. What is the rule? It has to be true for every item in the pattern. There might be more than one rule that's accurate. And then we can also use number lines or tables to show the patterns. So you'll see that on their homework. A number line, okay, we're adding 3 each time. We're jumping 3 spaces each time. Or maybe you'll see a table where the first item is 3. The second item is 6. Third item is 9. And it would go down from there. Okay? After we have solidified patterns, we will move on to multi-step word problems. And this is where 4th graders' heads just really start to explode. Because now we're asking them to do more than one thing at one time. So I might say that one student has 3 of something. Someone else has 4 times as much as that. Okay, we solidified that with our multiplicative comparison. So now we know they have 3 and they have 12. But then the problem asks, how much do they have altogether? So you have to first solve one problem to then find your final answer. So you'll see in the parent letter that we can use number lines to solve. And then it also shows an equation. We're going to start to talk about using those parentheses in the equation to find what happened first. And then, well, we got to do something to it after that, so then we add on another operation. The at-home activity for this has you look around the room, or even if you're at the grocery store, and look for an item that comes with several in a package. So maybe you're at the grocery store and there's a package that has 8 hot dog buns. Then you say, okay, there's 8 hot dog buns in one package. How many would be in 5 packages? And it's just kind of a game that you can play with anything. There's 12 rolls of toilet paper in one package. How many would be in 2? Maybe you could even challenge from there, okay, if I had 2 packs of toilet paper and 3 packs of paper towels, how many things do I have altogether? So just kind of starting to look for these patterns that we're talking about in the real world will help solidify that understanding. Let's see. It suggests you could say, okay, what if I had 6 hot dog buns in a package? I bought 3 packages. Okay, how many do we have total? Now what if we split them evenly among our family? So just taking that information and kind of taking it as far as you can. Okay, or if we ate 7, how many would be left? So just really thinking about all the different ways that you can manipulate numbers and patterns and things like that. So things to remember, the context here really matters. So if I say that I have 6 of something in a package and I bought 4 packages, if I'm going to draw a model for that, I really want it to match my situation. So if I bought 4 packages and there was 6 in each, my model would look like this. And I would find out, okay, there were 24 hot dog buns total. You might see that your student, I'll use another color, switch it up. You might see that your student notices, oh, 4 and 6, and they draw instead 6 sections with 4 in each. And that equals the same amount, but it doesn't match the situation that we're talking about. And then when we are doing this over and over and over, that's when we start to form a habit of just looking for the numbers and multiplying them together, or adding them, or subtracting them. But if we really pause to make sure that our model matches the situation, we're going to be more precise and we're going to get more accurate answers, especially in these multiple steps. Because imagine that what it said was you ate 1 pack of hot dog buns. Okay, well now I cross this one off, I can find how many I had left. But if I do that here, there's like not a good way to cross off 1 pack. So we really want to make sure that the models that we're drawing match the context of the problem. And one way to do that, Ms. Brown touched on this as well, is to read the problem 3 times. We're going to ask ourselves a different question each time we read. So we read once, what is this problem about? And at that point, it's too early to be saying multiplication, addition, subtraction, whatever. At this point, our problem is about hot dog buns. So we should be picturing hot dog buns in our mind, thinking about what they look like in the package. We really want to think, what is the context here? Next, what are you trying to find out? Are you trying to find out the total? Are you trying to find out how many was left after something happened? But knowing what your final answer is going to be is very important. And then you start to look for the numbers. So 4th graders love to read a word problem and say, oh, there's an 8, there's a 2, 8 plus 2 is 10. That was not what it was asking at all. So I don't even care about that 8 and the 2 until I'm reading it for the 3rd time. And then I'm going to say, okay, here's my 8, here's my 2, what do those numbers mean? And you can even draw the model before you even put any numbers in it. If I'm talking about hot dog buns and I know I got 4 packs, I can draw this and not fill in any numbers yet. But I know that when I fill it in, each one is a pack of hot dog buns. So really, really slowing down is going to help your students be more successful when they start to work independently. And I think I speak for all the teachers in this room that, like, if we're doing homework, I would much rather them take 20 minutes and really, really understand one problem than get the whole page done and it's done incorrectly and they had no clue what any of it was. So slowing down will always be a great option. And then watch out for those multi-step problems. Make sure it's not asking you to find something else after you already found one thing. Any questions about any of those things? That was a lot. Okay. The last thing I wanted to go over are those equations. because part of being precise in math is using precise vocabulary. So when we have a multiplication equation, and you have this vocabulary in your packet as well, it is only in English, I apologize. But we want to talk about multiplying factors together, which we are learning about, to get a product. I always tell my class, you can remember that factories make products. So we want to use these words, like what are your factors? What is your product? And when we set up an equation, it has to have an equal sign, and it has to have something on both sides. So just really holding your students accountable for that precision is going to help them, again, keep all of that information straight in their head instead of just writing an answer or just throwing some numbers down. Will really help them keep that straight. The division vocabulary is, we use it a little less often, but division always starts with our total number of objects. That's the dividend. We put it into groups, equal groups, using a divisor, and our answer is called the quotient. And that vocabulary is here in your packet as well. So just some encouragement to use that vocabulary during homework time to really help students be more successful in class. So our math lessons are very discussion based. So the more practice they get with that vocabulary, the more they're going to be able to participate in class, and it'll build their confidence for participating in class. Any questions about any of the math that we covered today? Some of it you haven't learned yet. So hold on to your question and ask Ms. Brown what she teaches it to you. Might be you just haven't gotten there. Any other questions?
Preguntas. This is a program just for school y el programa nomás va a ser, es un family night y típicamente va a ser al principio de cada unidad. This is a family night and we want to do it at the beginning of each unit, right?
Yeah.
Yes, and it's more of an overall understanding of what those weeks are going to look like coming up. Es como para que vean cómo se va a ver la semana, las semanas que vienen en la área de matemáticas. Pero sí tenemos nuestro math tutoring y también tenemos homework club.
Yes. What a great segue. Yes. So we do have some resources for additional help. We have a math tutoring program. Math tutoring is on Mondays and Wednesdays from 2:45 to 3:15. If you scan this QR code, which I can have everyone post it on Class Dojo as well, so you don't have to scan right now, you would select, there's an option to select 24-25 tutoring. And then we also have the homework club on Thursdays. So that happens from 1:15 to 5 o'clock, and students can take their homework with them to the homework club, and there will be a teacher there to help with that. Tutoring is on students' specific levels. So in the homework club, they would be working on the same stuff we're learning in class if they took it with them. But the math tutoring actually uses their iReady diagnostic and finds the things that they're missing and goes back to work on those things to hopefully support their success in class. And the data that we have gotten back from that shows that it really helps improve student scores. So definitely two options to keep in mind. And then we do have, it's 5:12, we were shooting for 5:15, so we did okay. We have a little time for more questions. We also have goodies for you to take home. So there is enough for everyone to pick something from the buckets. And then everyone can grab a dry erase marker. And we also have these dry erase pockets. So you can slide a paper in and solve and erase and solve again. Or we just have dry erase boards, whatever works best for you. In these buckets, we have some little like counters. So like if you're doing this activity, making the arrays, we have some things that you can use. We have some division and multiplication flashcards if you want to practice those facts. And then in this box, we have a few different dice options. So like a dice game, some large dice, and then these ones are dry erase surface dice. So you could put any numbers on there that you needed to use for the problem. So feel free to ask any other questions. If you want to mingle and ask questions, grab a cookie for the road.
Can I say one? So just
yes.
one quick thing about like questions, because I know sometimes, especially with math, it can be hard to come up or phrase the question. Like you might have some wonderings in your head. A lot of times for students, it comes out sounding a lot like, I don't get it. So if you have something that is still just, I heard what you're saying, but I don't get it. That's okay. That's a question too. So if there's something that is still kind of rolling around in there, and maybe even you go home and you take a look at the packet and you think, it made sense there, but here it doesn't make so much sense. Please, please, please reach out to us, because this is not the only day that we want to talk to you guys about this. So we are here for you. I think I speak for everybody. So we love that you're here, and we love that you're opening up math dialogue with your students as well. That's so super important. So, and I'm excited to hear about those grocery store conversations.
Si tienen preguntas cuando lleguen en casa, tal vez lo entendieron aquí en casa, tal vez aquí y cuando lleguen en casa se les olvidó algo, está bien. No es la única vez que queremos platicar con ustedes. Estamos felices que están aquí y queremos seguir esa conversación. Cualquier duda que tengan pueden conectarse con nosotros.
Thank you so much.